Hi everybody, this is Module 5 and we're going to start talking about training and development and successful employee communication. And one of the reasons why I grouped these together is because sometimes it's very difficult for employees to understand what kind of training and development opportunities they might have within an organization. And so it helps greatly if you can really communicate to them not only what's available, but what they need and why they need it. And so being able to communicate effectively with your employees really helps increase your overall success rate in terms of training and development. So that's one of the reasons why these are connected together. And then we're going to start moving into employee performance evaluations, and so successful communication with employees really becomes important when we start doing that as well. So kind of keep that in mind. But the focus really this week primarily relates to training and development initiatives, what those are, what those look like, how you determine what's successful, how you decide what to offer in terms of training and development, how you offer those different options to employees. And so one of the good rules of thumb to use to decide if you're talking training or you're talking development is this. When you start looking at training, what you're really looking at is what do people need to know today to do the job they currently have better, more effectively, more efficiently. And so training is really about teaching you what you need to know now, giving you skills to help you be better at what you already do in your current job. Okay, so that's really what training is aimed at. Development is a different animal. Development is a long-term perspective, and what do I need to do as an employer to help you be more beneficial to us long-term and prepare you for future job opportunities, not just what you're currently doing. So for instance, if you're in a frontline position and I realize that you have the potential to really be someone who could be a leader in our organization, an effective manager at different levels, and I could really see you moving up into levels of management, I might want to make sure that you're given development opportunities to increase your leadership capability, to stretch your skill set in terms of management of people, not just time and those types of issues. I might want to get you more development in terms of your ability to budget and to think about the big picture of the organization, not just your small piece of it, which is one of the things that really kind of separates out levels of management with frontline people, is that those in the front lines generally can see what's in front of them. As you move up, if you think of it in terms of a mountain, each level of management moves you up to a different level of that mountain, and as you move up, you're able to see more and more of the trees that surround you until you get to the top and you can see everything down through the valley. So one of the differences we have as we move up is that in order for you to be effective at those different levels of management, I really have to know that you can see a bigger picture than just what's in front of you. So that might be part of the development focus, is to get you to where you can start thinking that way. Now, one of the reasons why we do strategy as a capstone course and aim for it to be a capstone course in most graduate and undergraduate business programs is because strategy is about seeing the whole forest and valley, not just the trees in front of you, right? Strategy says you take everything that you've already learned in your program and you take this very high level perspective and you start looking down into all the different areas. And so strategy is about that big picture, and the more you understand and develop a skill set associated to that, the more effective you are as a manager moving up through different levels of management and into leadership positions. And those are two different animals, and we won't get into that too much right now. But that's one of the reasons that training and development are two different things. Training is a much more short-term, what you currently do focus. Development is a long-term, what we see your possible future being with us. And you know, one of the things with development is that we're really looking at the possibilities. You may have heard this either to yourself or you may have said this to somebody. You have a lot of potential, right? Well, potential is what we see that needs to be developed, and potential is only potential until action is taken to put that into practice or to use that in a way that makes you more effective, more efficient, develops a skill set to another level, right? You have the potential to do that. And then one of the other things that training and development help us determine about people is if they've actually reached capacity. So you have people that have a lot of potential, right? And we can develop that. We can train because they've got the potential to learn more, to do better, to become better at it. But some people actually reach capacity and they have no more potential. And where they're at is as far as they can go. They can't learn more. Their skill set can't stretch past where they currently are. And you might think, well, everybody can get better. That's true to a certain degree, right? But some people do hit that wall where they don't have the capacity and the potential to learn past what they currently know. And that's brain power. It could be energy, right? They're out of energy. Or desire. I've had people that have worked for me that I saw great potential, and I really wanted to help develop them because they could go past the level they were currently at. And when we would start talking about that, now they would take all the training in the world. I could put them into training things that would help them do what they currently did better, and they were all for that, all on board. They put in energy. But the minute I started talking to them about development opportunities to help prepare them for another position that was higher up, they just say no. I'm not interested. So they had potential, but they were capped out in capacity. That's as far as they wanted to go. So that's something else that development opportunities help us really identify, are where potential exists that can still be developed further, and where capacity has been reached and there's no farther places to go with that person. And so when that happens, you need to be aware of that, right? Now, this sounds very blunt, but you have limited dollars to put into training and development programs. I mean, that's just the reality. No matter what the size of the organization, there's still a finite amount of resources associated with these two things. And you don't waste them on people that have reached capacity, bottom line. But you've got to have processes in place that help you determine that, right? And so one of the things I will say is training opportunities should be made available to everybody in positions, right, that need them. So everybody that has trouble managing time, and one of the things they have to do in their current job is manage time effectively and efficiently, should be offered training on how to more effectively manage time. That's just an example. However, if I'm putting people through a leadership academy to help develop soft skills necessary for 2 or 3 positions past where they're currently at, for leadership skills, I might be much more discerning about who gets that opportunity. Now, I can't give you a hard and fast way to determine that. You already know about discriminatory practices, and you can't get into those. You know about disparate practices and processes that actually hurt particular types of groups, and you don't want to get into that. This really doesn't tie to any of those things but capacity and potential and desire, right? I mean, one of the things I think is always interesting is in organizations I would see people, I managed a large group of people. Part of my job was to develop them so that they were ready for another stage in the company when the company needed people. And one of the things I always found fascinating about some of my colleagues was that they never asked those that worked for them if they wanted those development opportunities before providing them. And that was always one of the first questions I asked, because I just I have a lot of desire to move, and I like to build things. I mean, that's one of my great joys in life. I like to make things better, examine processes. I like to build programs, build training opportunities. My classes change all the time. Why? Because I'm always building them or trying to adapt them so that they're more effective and better for everybody who takes them. Because I believe you're never perfect, and so you can always get better, and that includes building things, right, to help people be better in one form or another. Well, just because that's what I like to do doesn't mean everybody else likes to do that. And that's something I learned early in my career, was that taking the perspective that everybody is like you and everybody would want those opportunities is not always accurate. And when you have finite dollars to work with and finite opportunities, providing those to everybody when not everybody really wants them is a waste. So one of the first questions I always asked, and it wasn't just straight up, do you want to go do this? Because sometimes they'd say yes just because they wanted the break. It was really getting to know my people and understand their strengths and weaknesses and their desires. What did they really want to do with their life? Where do they really want to go with their career? What kinds of things do they love and hate? all those types of questions that gave me a great amount of insight. And so when an opportunity came up for a certain type of development, and I knew it coupled with perhaps a weakness someone had, but a career goal that they saw for themselves, then that was a golden opportunity for them. And it was a good use of resources in providing them that opportunity to develop. Because for that person, it really tapped into what they wanted to do, which meant that they really applied themselves and wanted to do it. Now, some development opportunities in organizations can be things like tuition reimbursement programs, right? That's about development. It's not about helping provide someone with tuition reimbursement for an MBA program, not usually about what job they currently have. It's about actually building their capacity to move past that into the future jobs or positions the company would have, and giving them a skill set that the company can't afford to develop internally. So instead, they'll offset that by helping pay for part of the tuition to go to school. It builds those skills and develops that person at a much cheaper price to the organization. So we can also use things like that to develop people. They don't all have to be internal programs, right? But it still takes our resources. And many organizations actually have had to adapt their tuition reimbursement programs to base it on grades. In other words, many organizations now have gone to a process that if you're making A's, you get 100% reimbursement, B's 90%, C's 80%, and if you're not pulling a C, you get nothing. Because you had people taking advantage of the program, but then that not equating into actually applying themselves in school and creating a good return on investment for the company, because it's about development, not about just a benefit. So one of the things I really want you to do with this, you're using employment metrics again, right? You're evaluating numbers, you're looking at what people have to say, but again, it goes beyond the science into the art of it. So how does that create a full picture for you in terms of training? What might tie into later development programs that the organization might consider? How do you make discerning judgments about who needs training, who needs development, where those opportunities go, how they're distributed, how you evaluate, while keeping in mind that you don't want to be discriminatory, right? Or have processes in place that have a disparate impact. So everything you've been learning all along, you pull into this with you, right? Because we start to think about how we're evaluating, how we're providing opportunities, what we're doing with our budget dollars associated with this, and how we make a strong case for training and development. Because it's interesting, the training and development budgets are similar to advertising budgets. When times get tough and there's economic issues, those are usually the two places that get cut first. Training and development budgets and advertising budgets. And they're actually two of the worst places, because yes, immediately you might not feel an impact, but if I cut my customer service training budget now because we have good customer service, and over time we start losing those people that had training and we're hiring people we aren't training, a year from now we may have lost a large amount of our customer base. Why? Because our customer service is horrible. Well, how did that happen? We had good customer service. We used to train for it and we stopped. So you have to really start considering how training connects to long-term strategic goals of the organization and underlying business objectives and business models. Because if our strategy hangs heavily on us being able to do that well, we better be able to do it well. And training and development also tie very directly to that. So as you're doing your assignments this week, just keep those things in mind, because it's really important. How we approach training and development, the programs we offer, how we actually offer them, who we offer them to, how we make those decisions, the questions we ask ourselves and our company about how that ties to strategy and long-term and short-term goals for the organization, and make sure that those dollars spent can really show a return on investment for the company. So if times get tough, we can make a case for keeping those dollars in place. If you have questions, make sure to post them, and I look forward to reading your discussions this week.